Greetings and welcome back to Immunotrack. Today's lesson is on It's Not Sodom Yet. But before we get there, I want to do a recap on my last video, Abraham's Righteous Man. Now, it is important to understand Abraham's Righteous Man, and I ask you to go back and look at that video and maybe ponder things about the righteous man of Abraham to understand the significance of what our lesson today is. I'm going to do a quick recap. In Genesis 18:23, or in just Genesis 18, let's say that first. God is coming to Abraham, is going to let Abraham know what he's about to do with Sodom and Gomorrah, because the cry of Sodom has come before him. And Abraham, being the righteous man that he was, and the heart for mankind, he approached the Creator with a question. He's in verse 23 of chapter 18, he says, "And Abraham drew near and said, Will you also sweep into ruin the righteous along with the wicked?" I mean, he knew that the end of the wicked will come, but he was looking, okay, he's going to destroy this city. If there's any righteous, I mean, wiping out those who are living and trying to live a righteous life, being swept out, is almost as if, what was it all for if there was no reward in being righteous on this earth? There is reward on this earth in the flesh for righteous living, and which we get into, Scotty and I do, in our new YouTube channel, Sacred Odyssey Videocast. We're doing a series on righteous. We've got part one of the what is righteous up, and we get into a little bit more on it in the second one that'll be coming up soon. But Abraham challenged God, and we're going to talk about that at the end of the lesson. But he challenged God with the question, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Now, we know that there was no righteous people in Sodom, because we know the end of the story. But the question I asked is, what would a righteous person in Sodom look like if he was there? And so it says, and I'll give the resource here in just a second. It says, Abraham's righteous man dwells in the midst of the city. It means he's inside the city. And in some sages says in the middle of the city, in the middle of it. In the midst of the city, he's in lively connection with this whole environment, with everyone around him, everything that's going on. He's involved. He's involved with the city laws that's being made, and the city activities, his neighbors. I mean, he's involved with the environment around him. He never ceases in admonishing, teaching, objecting, and warning, rectifying, and saving as much as he is able. He is attentive to everyone and never tires of righting things, trying to straighten things up, fixing that which is broken in the society. Even if hope for success is slight, he never despairs for man. He hastens to undertake any action for the sake of his fellow man. That was the righteous man in Sodom if he had existed. He was concerned with the plight of all mankind, men, women, children, Race is not involved. Just the plight of mankind within his environment. He was concerned with, and he was active in that concern. Now, today we're going to be looking at some, as I said, our lesson is it's not Sodom yet. Before we get started, I just want to share with you again my resources for the day in this lesson. Again, is the Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch Chumash, or commentary on the book of Genesis. It's a really good, intense study. My second source for this lesson is the ArtScroll Tanakh series, Bereshis, which is the Hebrew word translated as Genesis. Bereshis is the very first word of the Hebrew scriptures, the Torah, which is translated in the beginning. This is volume 1. There's 2 volumes to the book of Genesis, this thick, that goes through practically a verse-by-verse commentary on it, and a lot of overviews, talking about thousands of years of information that's gathered. And so it's some real good information. I'm also going to be pulling up here in a few minutes a website that I use. It's got Hebrew and English in it, just to show you a verse a little bit later on. It's another resource that I use in my studies. As I said, today's lesson, it's not Sodom yet. Now, I was born and raised in the religious South. Well, the South is more than just religious. There's a lot of good things of the South. There's a Southern hospitality that we all know about, slowly declining in this generation, but it's not gone. True Southerners, takes 45 minutes to say goodbye. You can't go into a Southern home, a true Southern home, without the woman wanting to feed you. You can't leave without eating. And I mean, I did heating and air for 20 years, and there was a lot of homes I put heating and air in, and the lady of the home would fix cakes and cookies and snacks. And one time a lady fed us a whole meal. Oh, you're not leaving without eating. That's just Southern hospitality. But it's also religious, which can be a good thing and cannot. And I'm not going to say it's not a bad thing. I'm just going to say it's can be a confusing thing. I'm just going to put it that way. But in the religious South, there's been a saying I've heard most of my life, and it's not just because of what's going on in the nation today. There's a lot of stuff going on that not really that good in our nation. There can be some good that comes from it if it's done right, but there's been some things not done right in this situation, what we're going through today in our nation. But even when I was a child, as television was getting more brazen and showing things more and more that was once held private, things that was once illegal, began pushing the envelope, growing. And I would hear people saying, "Oh, America's become Sodom. Oh, we're just a bunch of sodomites. We're Sodom. It's Sodom. We're not Sodom yet." And we're going to learn that today. We are going in that direction, but we are not Sodom yet. And we're going to learn why we, at least, I'm an American, live in the state of Tennessee, why we as a state, we as a nation, is not Sodom yet, but we have some breadcrumbs in that direction. And God willing, we won't go in that direction, because once we reach what I'm going to share with you today, we're in a lot of trouble as a people and as a nation. But it's not Sodom yet. Today's lesson is on Genesis 18 again, this time a few verses down, verse 26. And God replied, if I will find in Sodom 50 righteous in the midst of the city, I will forgive the entire district, which means 5 cities in the plain, because of them. I'll be coming back to this. We'll come back to this verse here in just a little bit. But we know the story that it goes from 50 to 40 and all the way down, But this is the beginning part. This is where Abraham approached the creator of the universe and challenged him with a question. It's in verse 23. Now is the creator's reply to that question. If I will find in Sodom 50 righteous in the midst of the city, I will forgive the entire district because of them. Now let's look at the commentary that comes from 3,400 years of heritage, of study, of history of the people from Abraham, his children, who's remembered and have kept recorded everything that was meant to be passed down for us to learn from. And understand at this time, Abraham is he hasn't, the nation of Israel hasn't been birthed yet. This is the beginning parts. Sodom was a non-Jewish city, non-Israeli. Israel hasn't been created as a nation yet. It was coming, but this is before. So that's an important understanding as well, because what we're going to learn here, this lesson today, it is not Sodom yet, can apply to any people, nation on earth, on this planet. This lesson can apply to not only America, but to Spain, to France, to the Philippines, anywhere. It can apply to all peoples, all communities where there is a human government. And you're going to see what I'm talking about. Now, God responded, and I'm reading in the commentary. Now, God responded, if even in a state such as Sodom, there are 50 righteous individuals who can publicly live a pure and upright life, who can even stand up publicly as champions of purity, justice, and humanity, then I will spare the sinners, not merely for the sake of the righteous individuals in Sodom, but because of the very fact that the righteous still live among them. Now let's go back to the last part of verse 26. I will forgive the entire district because of them. Keep this in mind. It's not for the sake of the righteous. It's because the righteous is among the wicked. It says because of the very fact that the wicked still tolerate the righteous and allow them to remain, This itself is sufficient proof that the measure of guilt is not yet full. The degeneration has not yet reached the lowest level. The progressive development of evil has not yet come to completion. As long as the wicked stop at mere derision, as long as the wicked publicly tolerate the righteous, despite subjecting them to ridicule and insult, as long as the wicked do not prevent the righteous from acting, as long as the fear of God is regarded as foolish, but yet not criminal, then the wicked have not sunk to the lowest possible level. Only when they no longer merely ridicule the righteous, but bare their teeth at them, only when they regard benevolence as a crime against the public welfare, and benevolence is prohibited, impeded, and punished, only then evil has reached its culmination. Let that sink in. Go back and well, my day, rewind. Just push the button now, the little sidebar backwards, and listen to that again. Understand, I'm going to read this again. The last line of verse 26 of Genesis 18. I will forgive the entire district because of them. What we do not find in this passage, that the city is spared because of the righteous. They're spared because the righteous is still allowed to be among them. It's not the righteousness of the righteous that saves the wicked, but it's the wicked that hasn't sunk to the level where they claim that the righteous are criminal. They're outlawed. They're punished for their righteousness. Are you getting this? Are you getting what this is saying? This is saying that as long as a nation, a people, a community allows the righteous to be righteous, even if they make fun of them, even if they mock them, the wicked can remain. But once the wicked makes laws and community programs and activisms against the righteous to completely stop them, to make a righteous person's actions illegal, make it illegal for benevolence, for charity. They outlaw charity to the poor and the needy. As long as they haven't gone that far, God or the Rabbi Hirsch says here, he says that when that happens, evil has reached its culmination. And I'm going to show you something here in a minute that I've even thought about until I found this in my studies the other day. And it shows its proof. And what I'm saying, we're not there yet. As a nation, the United States, as a state, at least in this state, Tennessee, we're not there yet. We've not outlawed charity. We've not outlawed benevolence. We've not outlawed people who are trying to live righteous lives. People who who give and care for one another. We still have food banks. We still have um, thrift shops. Yeah, people may have a thrift shop and it's as a business, but it's people who can't afford the the department store prices can go to a thrift shop. And we have groups that give clothes to the needy and the poor and gather. We gather, at least down here, we still, a couple times a year, we take up a food drive through our mail. See, these things are not illegal, but they were in Sodom. Now, granted, we have tendencies. We have laws being made against the homeless because they don't want the homeless in the city. And there is a partial understanding, but when a city puts concrete spikes under a bridge so a homeless can't find shelter from the rain, it's going a little too far. There's other ways. What about helping these guys? What about helping these people get out from under that bridge and into a shelter, a proper shelter that not only protects against rain but cold or heat? We don't need to make laws that push the homeless away because we don't want them. That's dangerous. Yes, granted, there may be places that they don't need to be because they impede upon public activity, but they shouldn't be pushed away. There should be an answer to help them. See, those are crumbs going towards Sodom. Not being able to give, to give to the poor is going towards Sodom, but we're not there yet because it's not illegal. As far as I know in this land, there might be bits and pockets and pieces, but as a people, we are not there yet. Now, I want to show with you real quick. I'm going to share with you a passage in Ezekiel chapter 16 and in verse 49. I want you to look at something here. I have it highlighted right here. Behold, this was the iniquity of your sister Sodom. Pride, fullness of bread, which represents that they were wealthy. They were a wealthy group of cities. They were like, let's say, Beverly Hills. There was 5 Beverly Hills in the plain of Sodom. That kind of wealth. But because of that wealth, it says there, and careless ease was in her. Man, you know what careless ease is. You have no want for nothing, so you live however you want. There's no need. You have no need, so you can do whatever you please, which generally leads to living an immoral life because righteousness becomes boring to you and you want to explore the taboo. So they were careless with ease in her. And in her daughters means there were 5 cities in Sodom, as I've said, Sodom and Gomorrah. In the plain of Sodom, there was 5 cities. So that's what it means here, in her daughters. It says, neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and the needy. They were known to make laws against the poor and the needy. And if someone fell in that area in their city, I have read that they would even put them outside the city to starve and to die, to freeze to death or burn up in the summer heat. But they weren't allowed to be in the cities of plenty. The needy could not be in the cities of plenty. They were a burden to them. So therefore, they made laws against them. So this is in Ezekiel 16:49. Behold, the iniquity of Sodom, the sin of Sodom. It tells what they were. Then it says their sin is they didn't strengthen the hand of the needy. That's why pretty much what we call fire and brimstone was rained down on them. Sodom would be saved not out of consideration. Let me read this again. Sodom would be saved. Sodom would be saved not out of consideration for the righteous, but the very fact that the righteous was there among them. They allowed them to be there. It wasn't their righteousness, but the fact that their presence of the righteous was allowed to live among them. That alone is what the Creator said would have saved Sodom. Now, I'll read you from this other commentary some very interesting things on this line. The Mishnah, which is another holy writing, I won't go into what the Mishnah is, you can research it. But the Mishnah describes Sodom's viewpoint of fellow man. And the first part, it kind of sounds, well, what's so wrong with that? But then when you really look at it, then you'll understand. The Mishnah says that Sodom's attitude was this: the one who says, what is mine, what is yours, i.e., this phrase means this. I mean, in all actuality, that first sentence is not wrong. What is mine, what is yours. We can follow with that with the prohibition of theft. We leave each other's stuff alone. But that's not what this meant. This was not no theft. This is what it means when it applies to Sodom and her daughters. He wishes neither to give nor receive from others. This is the manner of the ordinary people of Sodom. He wishes neither to give, neither to receive. Neither to give, meaning to help those who are needy, and neither to receive. He doesn't want anybody to know that they are needy because there are laws against being needy in that city, in those cities. It goes on, says Sodom was concerned in protecting what it had and in not sharing it with others. To do so, it erected a new social code, one that did not stop with charity begins at home, but which erected barriers against the hapless, terror against, and terror against the helpless. That pronounced a sentence of a slow and painful death upon a girl whose only crime that was secretly giving a crust of bread to a hungry stranger. People can go to frightening lengths to protect legitimate interest. The people or nation whose eyes turn inward in selfish concern for the protection of only his own concerns should search long and hard lest they become a sodomite. To be a sodomite is to be so self-concerned you have no concern for your fellow man. Your interest only is number one. How many people heard the statement, I look out for number one? Well, there is a sense of protection there to protect you, which is right, which is good. But when you only care about number one, you, and not your fellow man, you have just become a sodomite. In the eyes of God, the greatest abomination of all is social contract founded on selfishness, descending to cruelty, and resulting in perversion of decency. That is the greatest abomination. This comes from the overview of Sodom in the ArtScroll Tanakh series, Bereshit, or Genesis. I want to read this again because we can see that this very thing can be applied to what brought the flood, what brought the destructions of Sodom and Gomorrah and the other 5 cities, or the other cities. It also was about to be the destruction of Nineveh in the time of Jonah. Look these things up. Like I said last time, test me. Go back, look, see what you see, and then see what you don't see. Read it, learn it, study it. Don't read it like a children's story. Study it like it's a lesson from the Creator to you, because it is. It's a lesson to you and to me and every human on earth. Again, in the eyes of God, this comes from our Torah scholars, our sages of Israel. They teach us, in the eyes of God, the greatest abomination of all is a social contract found on selfishness, descending to cruelty, resulting in perversion of decency. Now I want you to listen to this. Again, go check it out. Don't take my word. Open the Tanakh, the Torah. Open the Torah. Open the book of Genesis. Open the book of Jonah. And look at these things. Now get this. We know that when Israel was given the land, when Abraham was given the land that would become Israel, it was where the Canaanites were. And it said that the sins of the Canaanites became full, and God sent Israel in, and they had to claim the land which he had given them. And they had to rid iniquity and wickedness and filthiness from the land that the Canaanites had brought there. But I want you to hear this. The property of Canaan, which is Israel, the land of Israel, which is bigger than what it is today on the map. It's huge. The land of Israel's never occupied the whole, well, I'm not even going to say occupied. Israel has never received its 100% portion of the land that was to be called Israel. It's large. But the property of Canaan was neither destroyed nor was it forbidden. The land wasn't even forbidden. Of all the wickedness that Canaan did, all the abominations that Canaan did, the land was not destroyed, nor was it forbidden to be used. But the property of Sodom was removed from the face of the earth. So grievous was the sin of its selfish owners. Their selfishness had become such an abomination that the land of Sodom to this day was removed from the face of the earth. It's inhabitable. It was ripped. It was one of the most fertile places in the whole area. That's why Lot wanted to settle there. It was great for grazing cattle and farming and just the riches. It was a land of wealth beyond wealth. Yet it is no more because of selfishness. It is no more because of selfishness. Do you see? We're not Sodom yet. We're still here. This land still tolerates righteous living. Yes, we have wicked here. Yes, we have abominations here, but we do not have the great abomination of a social contract with selfishness. I hope this sinks in. I really do. It's just gives me the goosey bumps when I study and learn stuff like this. When I can look out my window right here across this city in which I live in, and I see people and cars coming and moving and going inside of stores and in homes, knowing that it is here because we have not made a contract with selfishness. Righteous acts are still permitted. Righteous people are still allowed to live in the land. And because of their presence, the United States is not Sodom yet. Even, I'm going to continue toward the closing of this lesson. Even only, even, I mean, if even only 10 righteous individuals had been found in Sodom and Gomorrah, God would not have despaired of the wicked and the sinful. Out of the hope for a better future, he would have spared the whole community for the sake of the future. But where God does not lose hope, man too must gather courage and remain confident, doing his part to stand in the breach for the ultimate triumph of good. Even if he is only an individual confronting a whole generation gone astray, even if victory is foreseeable only in the distant future, long after he will have been in the grave. That's what we are to do. We are to stand in the breach. God does not lose hope. Man does not lose hope. We gather the courage and we stand in the breach for the ultimate triumph of good, even if it doesn't come about after we're gone, but we've done our part while we were here. My buddy Scotty Helton of East Tennessee, look him up on Facebook and look at the little bitty 2 to 4 minute videos he's doing on charity and things like that for his community. Really good. Look him up. Look him up and listen to him. This is standing in the breach. My buddy Scotty and his community is standing in the breach, reaching out to teach good. Not religion, but good and goodness. Now, this is really interesting. This whole dialogue, the dialogue of Abraham and God, Creator, this whole dialogue, if we may call it that, I love this, between Abraham and the judge of all the earth. See, in the first book of Genesis, it says, in the beginning, God, but it says the word Elohim is used there. That is the Hebrew word for judge. Men, angels, can carry the same title. It's a title. It means judge. God is judge of the earth. He creates the laws and makes sure the laws are in place and they stay there and they're kept. So Abraham, when he approached the Creator, he approached the judge of all the earth. In which a creature, now this is about Abraham, this is about you and me, in which the creature of dust dares to address God. A creature of dust addresses the judge, the creator of the dust. The dust is now addressing the creator of the dust. It says, in which the creature of dust dares to address God, the judge, on the basis of a sense of justice in his heart, and wins the Creator's agreement, is a guarantee of the godliness of the voice within us that appeals for justice. Although we are merely dust, our basis is dust, our end is dust. Dust we come and dust we go. Or we come from dust and we go back to dust. Not everything in us is dust and ashes. In this body, formed of dust and ash, lives a spark of the Creator of the universe, an echo of the Creator's Spirit. Living within this dust and ash is an echo, a spark, an echo of the Creator's Spirit. Humanity and justice and all spiritual and ethical qualities of mankind receive their eternal confirmation through this divine echo in every man's heart. Abraham approached the Creator before the destruction of Sodom. The Creator shared with Abraham, and you go back to the beginning of Genesis 18 and read, and you'll see things, why he shared what he was going to do with Sodom. That's another lesson. But Abraham approached God, challenged him with a question based on justice. God responds to that question based on justice. And justice really is the whole issue, because if the wicked permitted the righteous to live among them and live their righteous lives, even if the wicked mocked them, the justice of God was allowed the wicked to live. Only when they made righteousness and righteous acts, which is not a religious righteous, but righteous acts, acts of benevolence, acts of not stealing, acts of not murdering, acts of not sexual immorality. When people are allowed to live this in their lives and it not become illegal, then the wicked was allowed to live. So really, if you think about it, it wasn't the actions of the righteous that permitted the wicked to live. It was the actions of the wicked toward the righteous that allowed the wicked to live. They were allowed to insult. They were allowed to mock. They were allowed to beat the righteous down with their words and things like that, as far as just, insulting, berating, mocking. That was fine. God drew the line when the wicked outlawed acts of righteousness. Acts of righteousness, not beliefs. Acts. You don't need a religion to act righteous. You see, these righteous, as you'll learn if you'll go and watch our video cast on Sacred Odyssey. There's two groups. There's the wisdom of man and the righteousness of man. The wisdom is those who observe the behavioral patterns that the Creator gives us because it's rational. It just seems right. Yeah, it just seems right. God's not involved in that decision to live like that. You become righteous when you involve the Creator in your acts of good, saying, I do this because the Creator told me to do so. This is what He wants me to do. I do it for the sake of the Creator. That makes you righteous. That takes you from wisdom to being from a wise person to a righteous person, because now you've involved the Creator in your acts of good. And that's a righteous person, regardless of nationality, race, whatever. It's a person. It doesn't matter what anything else. It's a human being. But when the acts of the wicked outlaw the acts of righteous, that is the greatest abomination, and wickedness has come to its completion. That is the lesson we've learned today. So now we can see that at least we, the United States of America, because that's where I live. If you're in another country and you're, listening to this lesson, look at your country. Look at the laws of your country. Look at the laws of your city, your village. As long as they have not outlawed benevolence or acts of righteousness, and it has nothing to do with belief or religion. I'm not talking about outlawing a religion. I'm talking about outlawing acts of doing good, even if it be wise. Even if it be wise, that's a step. But the people who that act to do good for the sake of God is a higher level of acting in good. It just takes it to the next level. Does it make you, it takes it to the next level. So this is the lesson today. We are not Sodom yet, at least not here. And it's not the acts of the righteous that save the acts of the wicked. It's the acts of the wicked toward the righteous. If they allow them to be and to live among them, the wicked will not be, the righteous won't be wiped out with the wicked. But once the wicked outlaws acts of good, benevolence, and they become selfish and inward, that's when destruction comes. Think about it. Have a good day. And thank you for tuning into Immunotrek. And if this has helped you, please like my video. Subscribe to Immunotrek channel. And share. And those of you who are already subscribed and listen, please share my videos with anybody. Help my videos go all over the world. Help the videos of Scotty and our Sacred Odyssey videocast go all over the world so that we can benefit and help stand in the breach so that we can triumph in the goodness of the Creator that He wants humanity to live. He doesn't want us to be religious. Religion is the last thing. He didn't create religion. Man created religion. He wants us to live in harmony and peace and love one another and be kind because He created us to be that way. And we do it because He's our creator. He's our king. He's our judge. But this is how He wants us to live. He does not want contracts of selfishness, contracts of kindness is where it's at. May the Creator bless you no matter where you're at in this world. And thank you again for tuning in to A Moon of Trek. We'll see you next time.